white, is that Siberian? And Siberian ginseng is red, and the... Okay.
No, the...
They usually don't say red versus...
Right, the red, which you find sometime in... I used to get these wonderful red roots. They're made...
Red and white, is that Siberian? And Siberian ginseng is red, and the... Okay.
No, the...
They usually don't say red versus...
Right, the red, which you find sometime in... I used to get these wonderful red roots. They're made red by being cured over a vat of other herb cooking. Get these other herbs cooking, suspend these roots, and they gradually absorb that and they turn red. So they're very... I don't even know, forget right now what the other herbs are that cook. And then Siberian ginseng is Aloophococcus sentosa, so it's a different species. And that's actually more... there's like more lateral usage of that. It's not quite as powerful as ginseng. It's an adaptogen. It's more widely applicable, and that's a specific builder for adrenal weakness a lot too. Siberian ginseng, you really look at adrenals, but a lot of people have adrenal weakness because of a stress-filled life. And then there's pho tea. If you're in California, you probably knew pho tea. There's no such Chinese herb as pho tea. It's like a Western name that got applied to it, but pho tea is really shou wu. Do you know shou wu, that name? S-H-O-U-W-U, shou wu, which is a yin builder to liver and kidneys. So like if the kidneys are a little too hot or the liver's too hot, you need to nourish the yin of kidneys and liver, use the shou wu, but it's also a very good blood builder. It's very high iron. It's got sort of it almost looks the color of dried blood. I mean, it's very brown, it's extremely high iron content, so it's a good blood builder all by itself. Shou wu, I don't know. Maybe. Pho tea might. Okay. See now, just not to digress a lot on herbs, but herbs are fun. Gotu kola. Yeah. Was also sometimes known as pho tea, and gotu kola's got some caffeine, and it's a brain stimulant. Yeah.
So it's like Coca-Cola.
Yeah. So anyway, the herbs would be another level beyond nutrition, and I always felt nutrition was like your base, and then if you need to build a little more on it, if someone's more depleted, then herbs are the next line. So that would also relate to internal economy, using some tonic herbs. And I think as you get older, and some tonic herbs are good. And for vegetarians, definitely would maybe come online even sooner. Yeah, sometime I'll come to Boston. We'll go to Boston Chinatown.
I'd love that.
We'll go there to respect our uncles and our buy some of this, some of that. Yeah, it'd be fun, huh? It's amazing what's available now, because now there's so many street corner little pharmacies where they have all the herbs. It's very nice to see that, actually. So, onwards. Now, all right, we're finishing up with this whole thing of internal economy. Just to quickly summarize, I don't think we'll need to go the whole time either. All of this up till now is internal economy. That's number one. Number two, which we'll do in a minute, is yin and yang. And number three is the mental strategy. Those are like the three parts of this whole thing. The final part of internal economy is changing temperament. That's what my teacher always said. Even assuming you have chi, you keep it in the center, you can meditate, you know how to find it, you know how to re-access it, you do the breaths when in stress, you have nutrition, you have herbs, but if you're always stressing out over whatever, if things that happen to you immediately cause a stress reaction, you're always going to be losing internal economy and always having to get it back. So what my main teacher about Tai Chi said is the ultimate purpose, quote, ultimate purpose, is changing temperament, which means that nothing upsets your fundamental economy. And that's what we were talking about during lunch, all these little upsets. Is just to test, how's your internal economy? And so changing temperament is this kind of just looking at the world, keeping your center and allowing the world. And upon being asked many times what the secret was, he'd just say, change temperament. by which he meant wu-wei, or not forcing events and just keeping your center. But I've adapted it even a little bit in training people. See, he did it more in the yin sense of relaxing and being stable and being in the center, sort of like the classical Taoist way of changing temperament. But I've also observed that some people who come to Tai Chi, for instance, are too lax and don't have a center. So for them, changing temperament would first be building up to get a center, get some stability. But in any case, it has to do with being centered enough and having enough energy so your center is just not shaken by different events, usually. So all of these breaths, to me, that's still a temporary stage. If something upsets you, you can do 9 breaths or 36 or 108 or any multiple thereof. But at some point, maybe, when you really have the center, those things don't upset you in the first place. And so you're like always there. That's changing temperament. One way we can experiment with that, if you're not feeling too weighted down from lunch, are you? You ready? Well, anyway, this will circulate your lunch. Is in Tai Chi we use something called willow bending. And that is like the physical manifestation of changing temperament. So if you'd be interested in doing that, we can have a little fun with it. Let's try it. We have enough partners here. These shoes are not too slippery. Okay, so here's the name of the game. We can find partners, whoever you want to work with. Okay, then I'll be your partner. Now the name of the game is, you know willow bending, right? Let's just demonstrate it because Reed's a student. The name of the game in willow bending is one person pushes and one person receives. So if you're here all set, even give a little longer stance so you have good stability. Now the pusher, who's initially be me, we're not pushing with jerky, abrupt force. We're just applying pressure on that frame. And he's just going with the pressure. He's a pretty good player. See, now you notice, only by having a good root can you effectively use willow bending. But this means whenever the pressure comes, you're getting good, Reed. You used to be so stiff. Remember the old days?
I know.
He's a player. Look at that. Now I'm actually getting some force here. That's great. So now in willow bending, the person who's, yeah, so you be a little careful. The person who is receiving basically just goes. And the person pushing, now for instance, if I push on you gently, it's not hard pushing, but it's just checking where the center is. You're a player too. You didn't tell me that. See?
You didn't ask.
So we got the root. Yeah, so there. So there. He's a good willow. Willow. So here, you pushing now? So that's the basic principle. So I don't get to use my arms. All I can do, you push, and I just follow the push, wherever it goes. Then for you, now as we get one level of greater sophistication, and this is not...
I try to stay on my center while pushing.
Yeah, and beyond that, this is now getting into Tai Chi. It's not really from today. As I'm pushing, I'm monitoring. Okay, are you pushing me? See, now you feel a different dynamic. So you become aware of that in your palms. And then you try another approach. And then you see, oh, there's another dynamic.
See if I can find your center. And
exactly. Yes, and so typically, wherever I move, you're going to find something else that gives you a line into my center. Right, so you're training your palms to have that kind of sensitivity.
Exactly where you are.
Towards, got it. Try a little bit, it's fun. Try a little bit. Yeah, we can take a holiday. And that even harms your spirit. If people are always aggressing, they're always yielding. But when we say change temperament, it means you're rooted. And you yield, but your fundamental frame and root never yields because it's very strong. So that's a difference. So your mental relation to the world is very flexible, but your internal root with yourself is very strong. That's the meaning. So that's the difference. So to summarize it all up, it means yang inside, yin outside. On the outside, very pliable, very relaxed, very resilient, but inside, very strong. And very often in the West, so people like a very upfront, very powerful, but maybe down deep in the core, they're not so connected. So that's the first level of internal economy. Now we move on. Second level of the master key to strategy of life for the Taoist is yin and yang. And the basic expression of yin and yang is where there's yang create yin, where there's yin create yang. Same thing, getting into harmony. What does that mean? So really this applies to most anything in life. Architecture, personal relations, nutrition we just did, level of qi. The general rule is any situation you enter in life has a set of yin and yang components to it. A very simple example, like we're in this room today. It started out in the morning being kind of a yin day, misty and a little rainy and damp and cool. So we create yang with the extraordinarily more bright lights than usual, but you do create light and warmth and heat. And it's really common sense. I mean, there's nothing mystical about this. But when you do it, you feel more, things are balanced. Similarly, when it's superly hot, and any of you who've been in the tropics, there's a whole architecture style which is to make things feel cool and quiet and calm in the midst of intense heat and sunlight. All traditional cultures have their own yin and yang, because that's what has to exist in order to exist in nature. It has to be yin and yang. In the modern world, we can violate this a little bit because there's air conditioning and heating and whatnot. But traditionally, the strategy of the Taoist is always look at yin and yang and move toward the center from that. So we get back to that idea of center. You get in a meeting where there's a lot of intensely energized people, and if you're down in your center, gradually, if even one person's in the center, gradually the energy calms down a little bit. So like if there's excessive yang, someone in there needs to be yin but centered. If there's excessive yin and everybody's in lethargy, then someone's got to go in there and move things. It's just natural common sense. But sometimes, because of our belief system, like if we believe in being relaxed and mellow and whatever, non-assertive, and we go into a place and everybody's relaxed and mellow, then there's not a lot going to happen. Because our belief system says we have to be relaxed and mellow. And conversely, if your belief system is extremely aggressive, and then you go in and someone's even more aggressive, then, the big yang will always conquer the small yang. That's a fact. As big a, who's ever the more powerful is going to win. The biggest bull will charge and defeat the next one. But no matter how big a yang is, the biggest yang cannot defeat the biggest yin. So the more the yang is big, the more the yin is big, and then they're equal. Except that the yin, the yang will gradually exhaust itself by all the aggression, and the yin's still there, ready for more. So ultimately, yin is the winner. But in Taoism, we want to strategize a little bit for our life while we're in the physical to keep the yang. So anyway, these are a couple examples. Architecture, space, work conditions. Now, there's all these little strategies, but once you get the idea, this is simple stuff. It's common sense. If you're working in an area, an office area, for instance, is very confining, you would create something to give an illusion of space within there. So you might put up a landscape painting to give you an illusion of space. Or if there was a window in some place, you could put a mirror to reflect the window and a nice view outside to bring that sense of space in. Or even in the worst case, I had one person a while ago who was a receptionist in a school, so her desk was right in front of the main door to the office, and all day long people are coming by. And she says, like very by 3 in the afternoon, I can't stand it. There are all these people, and she's trying to get work done, and I said, put a crystal ball right there. It sounds a little nuts, like very new agey to put a crystal, but the crystal ball diffuses all that energy, and it also gives a certain little illusion of infinite time and space and distance. And she put the crystal ball, and then later it made her feel much more relaxed. So maybe that's just suggestion, I don't know. Or maybe there's some quality. I mean, the Chinese would say there's a quality of that dispersing the excessive qi and making her more comfortable. So there are ways, in a small space, you want to create an illusion of expansiveness. In a very expanded space, you create a certain illusion of little nooks and crannies and comfortable spaces. In Chinese gardening, in Japanese gardening, it's all based on this concept. Because they are typically in the cities, space would be at a premium, and certainly living quarters are at a premium. So then you create this garden, which could be no bigger than half the size of this room, but you've got certain plants, and maybe a little moon gate or a little wall with a little window. And when you're in there, it seems like you're in the forest, and it could be like, 300 square feet or something. Right out in western Mass, if you're in Amherst, there's a place in Stockbridge called Naumkeag. I don't know if you've ever been there. It's an old estate from the turn of the century, big, beautiful, wealthy estate. And there are many gardens there. Among them is a Chinese garden. And the Chinese garden's amazing because it's probably a little bit bigger than this room, maybe half again the size of this room. But that's not big for a garden. But when you're in there, it feels like you're in a whole world. Because there's 9 bamboos, and then there's a little pool, and there's a little temple, and there's some stone chairs and tables, and you feel in there like you're in infinite space. There's a moon gate that looks out onto the driveway, and then there's another spirit gate that looks out into the mountains. But anyway, they've created an illusion of great space in a very small space. So it's yin and yang. You got a small space, you create illusion of bigness, and big space create the comfort of small.
Keg?
Yeah, Naumkeag. It's in Stockbridge, Mass. Anybody will know where it is. It's a big old estate. So anyway, when you're a player of yin and yang, then you're always looking at these kind of things, what your space is like, what other people are like. So typically, if you're dealing with a very, very young person, you can't be totally yin, because that's not going to work. Very young people can't stand very yin people. Is that true? But if you keep your center and you're a little yin, it usually works out very well. Same thing could be true in relationships. If you're a very yin person, you got to figure out a way to create a little more yang in yourself. Now, the whole Chinese discipline of feng shui, or the internal design, revolves around this yin and yang concept, which is another topic, but that's based on that theory of...
So are women, by and large, is it correct to say that women are more yin and men are more yang?
In some respects. Tell me what you're thinking about.
Is that something that one should strive for? Like if my nature is pitta, there's certain things that will keep me in optimal balance.
Right.
Does it keep women in general in better balance to strive for more yin in their life? Is that a sexist concept?
No. See, I think the ancient cultures, I mean, there were some elements we now call sexist, but beyond that, I think they understood harmony and long term. So I think, in a sense, a man who's very pitta might be comfortable with a woman who's a little on the kapha side. You know what I mean? Because she's like, 2 pittas are going to... Yeah, I mean, it could be very exciting. It's a question, because it could be very exciting and very stimulating also, but maybe over a long period, it wouldn't be as balanced or harmonious as the other way around. And certainly someone who's on the kapha side, man or woman, would benefit by, 2 kaphas. Yeah, you just kind of sit and, do we want to go out? Oh, no, I don't. Do we? And so you need a little dynamic in there. You need the water and fire. And typically in the Chinese view, the man should be a little more yang than the woman. I mean, that we could say very sexist, but that's like typical Chinese view. And
since I'm more yang than Ben, Ben's more yang.
you're more yang what?
Than Ben, I think. So it just depends. We complement each other.
Yeah, I mean, it depends on what type of scale the complementariness goes. And then it also varies by time. I mean, at any given time, one person will be yang, one person will be a little yin, so that works out too. What else? I was thinking of something. It vanished. So anyway, I don't have to say a lot about that, except that the second phase is always for yin and yang components anywhere in life. People you relate with, jobs, places, activities, time of day, season. That's why when you go south, like if you're going, right now, if we're going to the Caribbean for a vacation, because going from, our bodies would be fairly young now, adjusted to winter. Typically, when I've gone south on a vacation, the first day or two, it's like hot and it's sunny. And even though it's great to get there in the palm trees, it's like, oh man. But then, you sit at the bar sipping cool drinks for a day or two, and you go in the ocean, and a couple days later you feel wonderful. But coming back, see, I've always observed quite often people coming from a tropical vacation to the north, and coming back they usually get a cold. It's like they're now readjusting, and some fluid or mucus leaving the body. So usually before I would leave, a day or two before, I'd start a little bit heating up and stop the ice cold drinks and prepare for coming back. That's yin and yang again. And it's all common sense. Now, activity. A master player of Taiji will change their yin and yang. So you always sense where your yin and yang is. Are you too yang at a given time, meaning overly energized, a little pent up, maybe impatient? Or are you too yin? It's pretty easy to figure out. Yin's being a little cold and lethargic. Now, in martial arts, and this applies to all sports, I think, if someone's in a too yin condition, provided they were healthy and they had energy, they would train for strength and energy. So like Taiji, if you're too yin at a given time, you're going to train for power. Imagine power in your moves. If you're too young, you could train for flow. Even someone doing Kung Fu or Karate, if they're too young, they could practice for a few days in a lighter way, but train for flow. Sports, if you're too young, you train the relaxing component of that sport for a while. Like tennis, just practice your strokes and do it soft and relaxed, even though you might lose some matches, but you're training flow and relaxation. And if you're lethargic, you train for more invigoration. So that goes through with most any physical activity, unless you're sick and you just don't have the energy. You also train yin and yang through nutrition, so we did that already. But that's right away, you're getting too cold and lethargic, you move toward heating and building and vice versa. Third layer of yin and yang, we talked already about this, but personal and sexual relationships. The complementary between the person and the man, the more jing the man has, the more yang the man will be. So constantly losing jing would create more yin. So that's a dynamic, but that also translates into psychological and relationship situations. So typically, you want to create a balance in relationship between psychic and emotional stimulation and repose. If it's always stimulating, it's going to be upsetting after a while, and if it's always reposing, it's going to be dull. And so how to change your personal dynamic so the relational dynamic will change. Another one might be meditation. This is important. We didn't talk at all about meditation, but in meditation, there's two very broad categories, we can say. And not talking about Zen or Tibetan or Taoist or whatever, but one is where you're fixing more on a point or on a specific focus. We'll say specific focus meditation, and one is broad focus meditation. Specific focus is when you're concentrating on the lower dantian, or when you're concentrating on the circulation of the light, or whatever it is, you got a narrow focus concentrating there. What that'll do over time is create more yang, psychically. More concentration, more focus, more intensity. The downside is that long-term focus can eventually, if you're only doing focus, can create too much, a little bit of pent-up energy because focused. And the antidote is what's called contemplative meditation, where you're just watching the flow of your own mind, uncritically watching the flow of your mind. Now, if you watch the flow of your mind too long, you get sleepy. So then you go back to focused. So somewhere between those balances of the focus point and watching the play of the mind, you can alternate back and forth. So there's actually always yin and yang. You can think of narrow focus, broad focus, power training, flow training, nutrition, anything. So that, leave that up to your imagination, but there's infinite ways to play off and apply that. Now, okay.